walking contradiction, the divine being, the most satisfied existence in the world, a synarch bishop of the witches' cult representing greed, Regulus Corneas. Regulus is an ordinary man, at least visually he is. Looking at him, he has no part of him that stands out. Body structure, typical. Height, average. Hair, normal. However, his personality strays just a bit from normalcy. Regulus is talkative, arrogant, cynical, selfish, prideful, pretentious, self-righteous, and condescending. Despite being the witches' cult synarch bishop representing greed, Regulus views himself as the complete opposite of selfish. He believes that he is the most satisfied person to ever exist. He does not need anything nor want anything from anyone. In his mind, he is the embodiment of the idea of complacent. Even though Regulus may say he is the most unselfish, satisfied, and content being in existence, but his actions prove otherwise. Regulus is known for being ignorant of his controlling nature. As I said previous, he is very talkative. He tends to ignorantly and unknowingly take control of conversations, often going on long tangents that may answer the question or respond to a statement within a few seconds, or it may take an hour for him to finally get to the point of his speech. When you look at every piece of dialogue from ReZero, and even the narration as well, the average amount of lines that a typical person would have is either 1 to 3. The average amount of lines for narration is probably around 2 to 5. On the other hand, when Regulus begins to speak, his dialogue is not so simple to write in 1 to 3 lines. Regulus speaks in final semester essays and college dissertations. The amount of lines for Regulus' dialogue is most likely around the range of 10 to 15. That's a lot of talking. When he is either mad or interrupted in the middle of speaking, that 10 to 15 can turn to 20 or 30 lines of dialogue in the exact way possible. He takes that as a personal offense on his right. If he is interrupted, whether that be from speaking or stopping his actions, he takes that as a personal offense on his human right. Regulus understands that people are able to act freely and is fine with that. He does not like anyone acting freely if they are going against him. Once they do, they are infringing on his right of freedom, and he does not like that. Subsequently, another aspect of Regulus' self-serving nature is his wives. Regulus has a very peculiar taste in women, but once he has found that one, he takes her with no question asked. Regulus owns 291 wives, and yes, I'm saying own, because to Regulus, they are his property. Regulus originally had 291, but when we met him in Arc 5, he only had 53. Regulus had murdered all of the other wives. Being a wife for Regulus, you are nothing more than a traditional 1950 housewife. You must cook, clean, and do everything to Regulus' liking. They were giving no freedom of expression, and when I say expression, I mean that literally. Regulus forbid his wives, after marrying him, to make any sort of facial expression. They could not express their anger, sadness, or joy if they even had any. Obviously now you can see the dichotomy between his ideals versus his actions. Regulus wants to be left alone, living his life the way he sees fit. He asks for nothing because he believes he is already satisfied with what he has. However, unconsciously, through his actions, Regulus forces his ideals and beliefs upon others. So there's a clear contradiction there. This is what I think makes Regulus such an amazing and interesting character. He genuinely believes one ideal, but in the same moment would completely betray that ideal, being too prideful to understand the contradiction. Regulus was never given a proper backstory like Betelgeuse. Nevertheless, a 3-page story was told on how he became to be this person he is today. Centuries ago, Regulus received the witch factor and became a synarch bishop. He killed his entire family in his village. His dad was a poor earning drunk. His mother was a verbally abusive parent. His brothers who selfishly took his belongings, and the village that neglected his family. He had murdered them all. He could not stand their condescending nature and the pity in which they showed him. Even though his father was a poor drunk, he still occasionally bought them gifts. Even though the mother was a verbally abusive parent, she will always be the first to apologize. Even though his brothers would selfishly take his portions, they will often divide their food to him when his has been spilled. All of them needed to die in the eyes of Regulus for executing pity upon him. He is the most satisfied existence in the world. He does not need such pity. Over time, understanding this common thought of love, he detested that thought. He believed love and affection makes it so that an individual cannot be independent. This is an infringement on his right to be independent. Out of concern for people who believed in what he would call this delusion, he gathered good-looking women, only virgins who would not betray him, all of the women becoming his wife. I do like to say Regulus was given the wrong sin. The sin of pride fits him much better, I would say. But with his selfish nature, being the synarch bishop of greed, is quite adequate for Regulus Corneas. Regulus' whereabouts throughout the story is quite entertaining. Every location where Regulus shows himself, he always serves no greater purpose for being there but to satisfy his own selfish greed. Over 100 years ago, Regulus was taken to Elephorus, being dragged along by Pandora. Not wanting to go there for the unnecessary reason of Pandora, he thought by accompanying her, he can feel a selfish desire of his. He was looking for a wife to add to his collection. Regulus' presence there is one of the main reasons for the chaos in Elephorus. Having done too much damage, he attempted to fully kill Betelgeuse, but was stopped by Pandora. After killing her, she came back and teleported Regulus back to his original location. Before coming to the forest, he deemed that his presence was no longer needed. After these events, later on during the subjugation of the White Whale, Regulus along with Lay, Baton Katos appeared. Here, the two confronted Rem, Krush, and Krush's faction, murdering all of the members of her faction and severely wounding Krush and Rem. He did all this because they would rudely and impolitely step on his right of freedom. And this coincidentally is also the first time that we got to see Regulus within the main story. The last instance of Regulus we seen was his appearance in the Watergate city of Prostilla. Following his gospel and personal desires, he came to the city looking for a wife. Upon arriving, he discovered Emilia. However, upon noticing her, he did not take her right away. A bit of time passed. As the Synarch Bishop of Wrath, Sirius, was about to harmfully hurt Emilia, Regulus stepped in to save her. Attacking the Sin of Wrath, Regulus protected who he had now declared his new bride. Later on in the arc, during the wedding between Emilia and Regulus, Emilia had told Regulus she does not understand what is going on and cannot marry him because she do not love him. Immediately flipping his switch, he detested her. Attempting to kill Emilia, Regulus was stopped by Reinhardt Van Austria and Natsuki Subaru. The three had an all-out fight in the city of Prostilla, lasting for many chapters, which resulted in the cruel and saddening death of Regulus Corneas. Regulus has one of the most unique powers, I would say personally, in the entire series. Regulus being the Synarch Bishop of Greed, he owns an authority of greed. An authority is an ability one possesses after taking in one of the 7 witches' witch factor. It just so happens that Regulus took in one of the best witches' witch factor, the Witch of Greed, Echidna. With the witch factor and authority of greed, Regulus has been granted the power of immortality and invincibility. There are 2 factors of Regulus' authorities that makes it work. The first is Lion's Heart, and the second being stillness of objects time. Lion's Heart allows for Regulus to merge his heart with one of his many wives. Having Lion's Heart in place, he is now able to use the effects of stillness of objects time. When this was being displayed, Regulus had hidden his original heart within his many 200 plus wives. However, he did not know which wife he actually hid his heart in, and then it turned out that the hidden heart was not hidden within one of his previous wives, but actually in his would have been newfound wife Emilia. Having Lion's Heart in place, this allows for Regulus to stop the time of himself or anything he comes in contact with. That includes breathing as well. Regulus is able to interfere with the outside world, while vice versa is not possible. Regulus cannot receive damage or be touched by anything from the world. He cannot be hurt, nor he cannot be wet. It is as if he lives in his own world or bubble. The atmosphere released from the stillness can cause shockwaves, and it can enable the user to travel at extremely high speeds. Using the stillness of an object's time, Regulus can do devastating attacks from random objects by stopping the time around them. He has thrown rocks, sand, and even air, all just randomly found on the ground and atmosphere, and all of them have been just as deadly as a knife or an explosion. In the early stages of Arc 5, Regulus attacks Subaru by just kicking dirt in his direction. Doing so, Regulus completely tore off the leg of Subaru to the point of the bone was showing. It was even so bad that Beatrice struggled to fully recover his entire leg. It is impossible to figure out Regulus' power, and if it had not been for Subaru being from another world and his knowledge of constellations, he would not have been able to be defeated. The author even said if Subaru was not there, not even Reinhardt could stop Regulus, which I personally disagree with. I believe that Regulus could have been taken down by Reinhardt if he was just by himself, but that's just me, and who am I? I am just some random guy. This is the Synarch Bishop representing greed. He is very prideful and is quite satisfied. However, he is very selfish upon the things he believes is his, and it is, as I always say, he is the epitome of a contradiction. But I hope you all have enjoyed. ReZero is finally back. Season 2 is here. Thank you all for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Thank you all for watching, and goodbye.